resume recording. So forgive the date here. This was the this was a PowerPoint that they used last year. And so obviously this would be for 2022 and 2023. So preparing for the job interview. And really your success sort of depends on the preparation that you do before you enter that room with the committee members. And you're going to have a handful of teachers on the committee. There might be a counselor. Certainly there's going to be an administrator, whether the main principal or, the director of curriculum or, another AP, but you're going to have a group of people there and they're going to have questions to ask you. And you might feel nervous, sitting in front of, a group of people asking questions. And so the preparation that you do beforehand does several things. First and foremost, it's going to make you look really prepared and like the best candidate for that committee if you go in there prepared, but it's also going to ease your anxieties if you're very prepared, because you can go in there knowing like, I'm ready for this. I know. So when we discuss ideas and questions that they might ask you, I'm going to ask that in addition to thinking about your responses to those questions, practice saying them to someone a partner, a friend, practice responding to what your teaching philosophy is, so that when you are in front of a committee of people under the spotlight, that you don't feel overwhelmed or, it feels contrived or scripted, that it flows and that you feel confident that you know what you're going to say. So moving on to the next slide, and I'm going to turn off my video just because I feel like it uses less something that slows down the internet. Okay, so let's make sure everyone's muted. Advanced preparation. Like I said before, your interview or your ability to do well in your interview begins not the day of the interview. It begins before you walk into onto the campus or into the doors in that committee room. It happens largely before. Are you ready to answer these questions? Have you thought about issues? Do you know who they are? Different things that will make you a more attractive candidate for the campus and make them want you, because that's what you have to do is, sort of make them want you. So step one, before, and this happens before you walk in there. So you want to do an inventory, and this is in preparation to make a really solid resume. Do an inventory of all of your attributes. And what I suggest, and I think it's mentioned on the next slide, but I'll just go ahead and mention it here, is that you print out the job application or description or profile for the position that you seek, because the district is very good about describing the type of teacher candidate that they're looking for, who they want to add, what their campus goals are, what things you should be able to do, and they want you. So do sort of side-by-side assessment, take an inventory of your strengths, and make sure if you can do something that they specifically ask for, that you certainly highlight it on your resume, that you make sure that you tailor it to highlight the things that they seek that are there in you. So education, your experience, both paid and unpaid experience is experience. All of your experiences are valuable. If you are, someone who teaches Sunday school and have done so for 6 years, that's important. Teaching Sunday school involves pedagogy, it's just a different topic. So that is important. Your accomplishments, any achievements, skills, or competencies that are relevant and that might make you a more desirable candidate or applicant, especially, like I said, if it's listed specifically in the job description that you're applying for. Any community service that you do at all, whether or not it has to do with education, because they want to see, are you someone who cares about where you live? Are you someone who cares about the community in which you live in? Do you go help, the food banks package things, and, what things are you doing? Any clubs and organizations either that you've helped in, like maybe you're a Girl Scout person or Boy Scout, or you've been involved in the organization in some way, extracurricular activities that you've done or that you are interested in, and if you list them, you have to be willing to sort of be asked to sponsor those things. So if you list your extracurricular activities, like you love reading club, and that's something that you would want to start on the campus, it'll make you a better applicant. Or if you're, we're on the soccer team, and you would have no problems helping out with the 7th grade soccer team if you're applying for 7th grade history or ELAR, whatever the case may be. I wouldn't list extracurricular activities unless you are going to be willing for them to think that that's like a green light for you to do that. And I always think that it's a good idea for everyone to try their hand at, coaching or sponsoring something for the kids. It gives you a different perspective of, our job. There's a lot of aspects to education to make it well-rounded, to grow the students, not just into academic successful adults, but social, emotionally successful adults, people who are going to be good citizens and whatnot. So it takes a lot more than just the class and what we're paid for. And that means that people have to be willing to sponsor clubs. I have so many years sponsored very, very many events in UIL, and it was a pleasure. And yes, it was extra work, but I got paid for it. There was a stipend. It wasn't commensurate with the amount of time I spent, but the amount of time I spent was beautiful time with students, and they had fun. I had fun, and it was something that I enjoyed doing. So work ethics, your values, those are just things that you need to take an inventory of before you begin to write your resume. So you don't want to write a novel. Like, for sure, you want to make sure that you present yourself in a concise, straightforward, matter-of-fact manner. You don't want to give them 3 or 4 pages of text, and you might have 3 or 4 pages of relevant experience, but try to keep it to 1 page if you can, maybe 1 page front and back, and you can go with a little bit smaller font. I wouldn't go any smaller than 11 though. Keep it simple and try to align your resume with the job description and those key qualifications that they listed as something that they desire in their applicant. So you have your objective, your professional profile, education, honors, certifications, key qualifications, employment history. So relevant employment history, I would imagine, not everything. If you worked at McDonald's when you were in high school, you don't have to include that. Relevant job history that shows that you are someone who can keep a job and that is responsible, and place irrelevant information that does not, don't give irrelevant information. That's what I was saying. So if you worked at McDonald's when you were in high school and you're now 28 years old, ready to be a teacher, don't include that irrelevant information. Keep it down to mostly what that job description is. Use that as a guide, sort of to tailor, highlight in that job description the key aspects or qualifications that they desire that you possess, and make sure that you highlight those. Make sure that you, if you're doing, a cover letter, that you explain that you are those things that they are looking for. Okay, so teaching portfolios, and I'm going to turn on my camera to do this portion. Oh, sorry. Start video. So creating a teaching portfolio is something that really helps you focus your goals for this profession, which I have to commend the three of you for choosing this profession. It is, in my opinion, the best, most noble profession that there is, from which all other professions are born and begin. So we're very, very important. But this helps you sort of keep together teaching philosophy, goals, teaching methods, strategies, possibly expectations, sample lesson plan. It's something tangible for you to take with you into your interview, so that you can show them, these are some of the things. It's my resume, hand it around, people look at it. This is my teaching philosophy, which is something that you should give a lot of thought to. What kind of a teacher do you want to be? And think about the teachers that you've had in the past. Have you ever had a teacher make you feel like they didn't like you? And if they did, how did that impact the learning environment? Was it on purpose? Was it, and thinking about what kind of a teacher you want to be. And that's something that I did, that my EPP program made me think about, my teaching philosophy. But I wanted a safe place for the students to learn, laugh, and love. I wanted them to learn and laugh together. Like, we were going to do difficult things. And I told them at the beginning of each year, guys, we're going to work hard. We're going to be analyzing poetry and being all poetic ourselves and writing essays and analyzing texts, but we're going to have a lot of fun too. And we did both of those things. And so after, my second or third year of teaching, started doing a dialectical journal, and people call it different things. And this is what I would take later if I, or when I moved, because I went to 3 different campuses during my time. And so this is something that I would bring in, not as my teaching portfolio, but it's something tangible for them to look at, something I do with my students. And it shows teaching methods and strategies and all that good stuff within here. And you could even write your teaching portfolio, but this is something that I did with my students. And it's where we put all of our notes that we did, anything that we did, that was notes, anything that I, gave them that we worked on, they glued in. We took many notes here. They did like some of their writings in here, and there's different ways to incorporate this for different content areas. For math, very helpful in math, and they call them interactive notebooks in science as well. They use them. And so mine, if you can see this one, it says Sage Sauceda, and it has lots of stuff on it. This was actually my students' first project assignment. And we worked on this really hard the first weeks of school, where I super built a relationship and a community of learners. We didn't jump straight into doing poetry. I still was analyzing them on TEKS, because for ELAR, we have viewing and representing skills, language, but they had to choose quotes. There were several things that had to be included on this. This year, I was scholarly Sauceda, so they had to choose a synonym that matched their name, and we played a game the first 2 days of school. I learned everyone's names by the first day of school using this little game, and I get to know my students, what they like, what they don't like, their interests, and the best way to engage students in learning, especially in content area or concepts that are difficult and challenging, is to utilize their interests, their desires, their cultural nuance or representation in some way, some tangible them within the lesson is important. And so part of that is getting to know who your kids are. And so this is where we put all of our stuff. It's used as a study guide. It was used for me. I assessed this for many different things, for the quotes that they chose, the visuals, and I provided a lot of magazines for them to cut things out and look for stuff, to meet the little scavenger hunt of them, of who they are. And it helps shows my strategies that I utilize. I do a lot of tactile activities, things that are hands-on, so that the kids who learn in that way are getting that benefit. We do a lot of stuff. I always try to show visuals or videos which will illustrate a concept better than I can articulate, right? Because many of our students are visual learners and they need to see things. And it's not good enough for me just to pontificate or do a direct instruction. So bringing in myriad strategies, pathways to student success, very, very important. Another very important aspect of your success is classroom management, and that means discipline. And so part of this exercise is not just to learn about them, but it's also to build a community, a sense of community, because while they're answering and gathering these things, so they have to put like a family quote, like something that their family traditional like says, and a saying of some sort. So there are things that they have to scavenge for about even themselves and their desires. And then we spend time putting it together. And there's actually 2 notebooks in this because I was an ELAR teaching. So there was a reading section and a writing, but this can work in many ways. Some people just used one. And during that time, as they're working in groups, think, pair, sharing, and we did vocabulary instruction every day because we were writing in it as we began, as they were doing the outside. It was a team building exercise. And in those days, we discussed what was necessary as far as expectations for the class and behavior in order for us to achieve the goals. Because I explained to them the goals that the district had for us, the goals that the state has for the district, the goals that the district has for the campus, and the goals that the campus has for me as Miss Salceda. And they felt already that they were Miss Salceda's team. Oh, we're gonna do the best. And so really getting them involved and like, this is your learning experience, like not just something that I have prescribed before having met you, and it's just going to go and I'm going to pour this knowledge into you. No, this was going to be something, a learning experience that we were going to go through together, and it was just as much theirs as it was mine, and it was less mine than it is theirs. So including a sample lesson plan is always good rule of thumb. You want to keep it something short, like a mini lesson. You want to make sure that you do things that are best practice, that, for instance, you differentiate for instruction, which means that you are creating different pathways to student success on whatever goal or learning objective you have. And so in your lesson plan, your learning objective is going to be very clearly stated. You're going to have a very easy way of assessing that, whether formally or informally. And I would suggest that you have multiple ways to assess whatever learning objective you have. And make sure that you have planned for, visual, audio learners, tactile, those who are English language learners, those that might be special ed. And so there are particular ways that you can make sure that you plan for those students. So in any class with ELA, English language learners or special ed students, you are going to want to pre-teach any content or academic vocabulary, and sometimes social vocabulary if necessary. So let's say that you are reading a small excerpt from the textbook and it goes over 3 vocabulary words. So you're going to teach those 3, but an effective teacher is going to know her students and say, okay, so I have like 3 English language learners and 2 special eds in this class, and they're going to have difficulty with a couple more words. So I'm going to go ahead and teach 5 words before we read this section. A little bit extra work, 2 more words. But what that does for those 2 students is it allows them better chance of success for comprehension of the text, because you had the forethought to pre-teach vocabulary that you knew specifically a handful of students might not get. And the textbook makers don't know your students, the demographics that you have in your classroom, right? So they can't possibly have chosen all of the words that your students don't know in the readings. And that goes for any text, for any publisher. So just things like that, making sure that you're pre-teaching, because pre-teaching academic vocabulary is best practice for anyone, but especially so with our English language learners and our special ed students. So making sure that you have those things in the lesson, and just do one small learning objective. Don't do a whole shebang where it's like, this is a unit and 6 weeks I have planned out. You don't need to do all that. Show them in a small amount of time. Like, we're going to do a reading on osmosis, right? And so for osmosis, you're going to have these vocabulary words defined. You're going to do background building, which is another really important thing that everyone should do before they begin a new concept or a new lesson, is to build background knowledge. It's another strategy that you can do to help your students be successful, because it's background knowledge is kind of, I'll give you an example. It's like going to a movie that you've never seen the preview for, ever. Like someone just bought you the ticket and they're like, we're going to go watch House on Haunted Hill. And you have no idea, like maybe from the title you might know, but like, okay, so this is a scary movie, right? This is a scary movie. Okay. But you have no idea what's going to happen and you can't really piece it together. And so you're really going to have to pay attention super, super hard, and you might not follow. Trailers and those teasers give us background knowledge, so we kind of know what to expect. We know some people are going to die because I saw some stuff, and there's going to be, and I can opt out of it, or I can have questions. So building background knowledge allows your student to go into a lesson with a little bit of prior knowledge, right? With a foothold on what is going to come, rather than being thrown in cold turkey into the pool. So think about that when you're doing your sample lesson. Don't try to cover too much. Choose 1 or 2, if you must, learning objectives that you're going to focus on, and then try to hit all the good stuff. Differentiate for student success, differentiation of instruction with the strategies that I just mentioned. Make sure that you have an activity that has students practicing their oral language. So even in a math class, I'm talking about Pythagorean theorem, maybe we're talking about Pythagorean, the guy who came up with it, and we're talking about it, and I ask the students 2 questions and have them write it down, because you want them to be writing and reading and speaking and listening about all of the different content areas. So we want them writing about math, we want them writing about science. And so in whatever content area you're in, even if you're for music or you're for trade, tell them you're going to be helping the content areas, because you're going to be asking about, to write and reflect on things, because you should be, because all Texas teachers are responsible for helping English language learners acquire English while at the same time teaching them whatever content they're in. So make sure that you hit all those key points and that you keep it a little bit short in the teaching portfolio. But if you wanted to take in something like this and tell them you're going to use an interactive notebook, which I find really helpful, because it's a really great way of keeping track of the things that they learn and keeping them responsible for the things. Like I was sort of a tyrant about them gluing and or taping. And I would even spend money out of pocket to make sure that like I always had extra glue or tape if they didn't have it. Some. But so that it was in there because it was all useful for studying and it was all things that didn't change. The way that we analyze literature is not something that's going to change from 7th grade to 8th grade. So my 7th graders took their books, and in 8th grade, they were in English class ready to go. They knew all the literary terms, and they even had examples of stories that they could, relevant text in there. And so it becomes a document that is useful and meaningful to them and that they wanted to continue using. I had some high school students take it with them to college and say, I used mine in college, Miss Alceda. So however you want to, but certainly go in there with things prepared to show them how you sort of shine above the rest. Another really important thing for you to do, and I think it's on the next slide. Let's take a look. Before. Okay, it was the job description one. And you should do this while you're doing your resume, the job description, making sure that you review it, that you know what they're looking for, and that you not tailor your resume to be fictitious, but certainly to highlight, the qualities that you have that they desire. So make sure you include that in your resume, those qualities that you have. Do the research. Do the research on the campus that you are applying for. So before I went in to apply in San Antonio, I looked at Northside. I asked people who I knew worked. What their goals were like, what initiatives were going on. And at the time, their initiatives actually were going online. They were doing a BYOD initiative, like bring your own device. And so some schools had been allocated at the time, this was in 2012, had been allocated iPads, but there just wasn't enough in the budget to give all of the schools in Northside. So it was like going to be this rollout thing. And there was going to be this committee, which I actually got to be a part of. So I told them I'm all about technology, and I'm part, I explained to them, I can help you with this initiative that you're doing. So I did my research and utilized it, and I got the job. Another very important piece of knowledge that you can have about their needs, although I would not overtly point out any deficiencies that they have, is the TAPR report. And we're going to go there right now. Can you see it, or is it still stuck on? I'll just stop share and do share screen to this. Okay, so here is where you can go and actually pull out the PDF for the school year of a campus that you would like to see, what their demographics are, how many English language learners they have, how many special ed students they have, that their performance academically with their special ed students, their performance by demographic, by age group, by grade level. So it's all there. You could look through this and see that they need help in a certain area and just mention that you are good in that area. Or maybe show them a lesson from an area of weakness that they have. That would be a way that I would utilize this report. I wouldn't necessarily bring it up and say, well, I see you guys are doing really bad in your math instruction. Like your math scores are really low. I wouldn't go in there like that. But I certainly would look at, and if I saw that they were low in math, maybe even if you're an English teacher going in, say, I also tutor in math, which is something that I do. I tutor in math. So as an English teacher, if I see that their scores are really low in math, I'm going to say, and I also tutor all students of all content areas during my class periods, math students and whatnot, and to make myself a better applicant. Whatever you're going to do, whatever you can do, that is credible. Don't lie and say that you're going to tutor math kids if you're not going to. It's something that I actually did, but whatever you can to make yourself sort of stand out from the flow of applicants. Let's go back to Okay. Okay, so just general advice tips. Be on time for your interview, be there a little bit early, be kind, smile, make yourself pleasant. Nobody wants to work with a sour Sally or a sour Sam. So, make yourself, absolutely. I will certainly share the link to that TAPR page. I'll do it at the end. I'll put it in the chat box. Dress professionally, even if it's via Zoom. You don't have to go in there with a 3-piece suit, but just look your best. Don't, get a haircut. Don't get a haircut. Don't go in there scruffy, get a haircut, trim your beard, go in there, present your best self to them. So that they say, okay, I can see this person on our team. Because that's what it is. The campus is a team. It's a team working for a goal, and it's all hands on deck, and everybody has to be willing to help and sacrifice, and it's fun and demanding, and hopefully at some point in the future, people will realize how important it is to pay you guys more. So review possible questions and educational terms or acronyms. And so things like your English language learners. And I just talked about that right now. So if they ask you, how are you going to support your English language learners? Say, I'm going to talk to them all the time. I'm going to make sure that I present many, multiple millions of opportunities for my English language learners to practice speaking, basic interpersonal communication skills, which is just like, hey, what are you doing, Miss Alceda? Or, CALPS, which is content academic specific language. So I'm going to make sure that I am doing activities like think, pair, share, find somebody who, small group, one-on-one questioning activities. I'm going to make sure that I am always pre-teaching academic vocabulary, that I'm pre-teaching any vocabulary that I might, that I find that I think might impede the comprehension, which is the understanding of my English language learners. It's very important that we give them opportunity and in a safe place to practice the language. And that means that their peers are not going to be making fun of them because they have an accent. That is something that is discussed in the beginning when you guys are team building, and we're like, we don't make fun of anyone, we're Team Salsada. And if you have an accent, it just means that you're smarter than the average bear, because if you know more than one language, it means you have more neurological pathways and are therefore scientifically proven as smarter. So we do not laugh at people who have accents or are learning another language, because that just means that they are becoming smarter than everyone else. So GT, how do you help those GT students? You make sure that you find ways to support and enhance their talents, while also making sure that you don't neglect their deficits, because GT students are still under special ed and they can have deficits in some ways and some difficulties. So making sure that you help them shine in their talents, but while also supporting them in their, not neglecting any deficiencies they might have. Making sure that with your special ed students that you're doing all the same things you would do with your ELL students as well. And that you are being an advocate for them, that you are an advocate for the student to learn to be an advocate for themselves. And this should be true of all of your students, but especially true of your special ed students and of your English language learners, because your special ed students very much feel sometimes like second class, scared, ashamed, unknown, and even might be, as a result, a manifestation of their disability, unable to or not as proficient in asking for help, being an advocate for themselves. I don't understand, or I don't want to be talked to like that. I don't think that that's okay. And I want to speak to the principal. Don't have those types of forms of agency or confidence. And so it's our job to make sure that the special ed students feel comfortable, confident in our classroom, that we're supporting them, but that we're also making sure that they're not bullied, that we're holding them to the standard that their IEP says that they can do, providing those supports outlined in the IEP, the individualized education plan, which is, by the way, a legal document. So you can't share it with anyone. If you have a substitute teacher come in, you can't leave your IEPs with the sub. It would be against the law. It is confidential, private, lawful document that is between the teacher of record, the teachers of record, the special ed teacher and the general ed teacher. And so only the parents and we have them. So making sure that their schooling is takes place with dignity. And so that their stuff is upheld confidentially, and that we provide supports in class to minimize whatever their disability or disorder is, because we have students who have emotional behavioral disorders, and the law says, and what is right is that they be in the least restrictive environment. That's in the classroom with all the other students. So even if they have, these issues, we have to find ways to work around them in order to support the students. So many things that we can do, just making sure that we are providing ways to support our students that need just a little bit of extra support to do the things that their peers are able to do, which we know they can, and which is achieve academic success. Okay, these are again the acronyms: gifted and talented, response to intervention, things that we do to intervene before they get sent to special ed, before it becomes like an issue. We do try different intervention if we have a student acting out and they're not yet part of the special education program. 504 is also under the umbrella of special education. And so it's students with disabilities, but they might be temporary, not all of them, but many of them might be. So if a student breaks their leg, they might get access to the elevator when no students get access under the 504. And I was even labeled 504 during 4 of my 5 pregnancies because I was on campus as a teacher. So I was 504 and I got the key to the elevator, which teachers don't even get. And, I got to park closer to campus, and nobody has parking spaces. So there were different sort of supports to make my life easier at my job. So 504 is actually something that exists for all of us, faculty and staff and students. They're all under the special ed umbrella. And you have your English language learner, and you have English as a second language. Okay, don't overly brag, I would say. Remember I said practice talking about the things that, hold on 1 second, I have to go get upset at a puppy. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so certainly highlight yourself in the best possible manner. You want to say, if you did teach Sunday school, I taught Sunday school, I volunteered to teach Sunday school, and it was, very fulfilling to work with little kids. And that's when I realized it. But so don't overly brag, but certainly utilize your experiences to paint yourself in the, best manner like possible. Certainly don't say that you don't know anything about teaching because you've never taught, because you can learn and know a lot of things before your first day. That is not to say that the bulk of what you'll learn comes once you enter the classroom, but you can know, excuse me, what is the best way, to plan for, what are the best sort of ways to divide the lesson cycle so as to keep the kids' engagement, and what strategies. There are things that you can learn and do and be ready for. Strategies to be ready for classroom management, strategies to be ready for your lesson design, and then the implementation of it. And remember what I said, major do's, do practice talking about yourself. My name is Stephanie Sauceda, and I've been a teacher for 15 years. I started teaching in 2003 and left teaching to teach teachers. So practice talking about it and saying what you do. You know, I've always wanted to be a teacher because my grandmother was a principal at an elementary in Brownsville, and I used to go with her during summer school. And I was kind of like the sidekick to the principal during summer school, which is essentially mini principal, I felt. And I was just always something I really wanted to do. And then when I started doing it and saw the impact that we have on society and children, really, it's something that it's been very gratifying. So practice talking about stuff. Do not say I'm not certified, but I will be. If you're in an EPP program like Teacher Builder, then you will be certified as soon as they get that. Don't say that. Just say I'm with Teacher Builder. So I have my forms to begin in the classroom. And certainly don't speak negatively about previous employers or yourself. So don't knock yourself down and think, oh, it's like a humble quality. Don't speak negatively about yourself. Make yourself shine. And I'm not saying to lie about who you are. What I'm saying is to make sure that you have assessed what qualities they're looking for, reflected on which qualities match yours, and make sure you highlight that the day of. Make sure, then that's not bragging. That's just telling them, just so you know, because these are the things that you're looking for. I am these things. That's not a brag. Those are just facts. Okay, are there any questions? While you guys are typing out your questions, and then I'll answer them into the chat box, I'm going to get out of this presentation and go back to here, get y'all this link. So I just put the report, school report, and you can get this by campus, by district, by region. It's pretty telling. You can look at where your kids go to school. You can look at where you went to high school. It's pretty tricky a little bit when you're looking up things because you have to be very precise with typing in the district name or the campus name, or else it won't bring it up in the drop down. So you have to type it the way it's in the drop down there, or it's not you won't find it. It'll be harder to find it. Are there any questions, guys, before we part ways?
Ma'am, can I ask rather than typing it out?
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. So my question is specific because I'm an international applicant. So is this the right time to ask on this platform?
I'm not sure, but sure, you can ask. Like, what is your question?
You know, like today's webinar, I have and through TBC, I have accessed the resources, you know, preparing myself for the interview. But whichever interview I've come across, you know, there is no mention of an international applicant. So I am basically an international applicant. I am on a visitor status right now. And when I will be going for an interview, you know, the school has to give me sponsorship, as in the visa. Only then I will be able to work. So how do I initiate that conversation? You know, and I've never gone for an interview, so I need advice on that.
Right. Well, first, I think that you want to think about why. Certainly, you don't want to say, I want to teach so that I can stay here. You want to present first your teaching philosophy. Think about what content area are you going to be teaching?
Special education.
Special education. So not only is it so important that we have diversity in the classroom, because we have like a diverse population of students all throughout Texas, a very large population of English language learners that are not only Spanish, that speak a myriad of languages. We have a lot of diversity. So it's important that our campuses and the staff and the teachers reflect that. So that's A. But B, you can read to them your teaching philosophy and then say that that's something that, I look forward to be able to do here in America, but I would need the support of a campus in order to be able to fulfill that, so start with the teaching philosophy.
Okay.
But certainly mention it up front. And it's not anything that is new. There's not anything that is new. And so they've done it before. They've had applicants from other places, and it's no big deal. So just make sure you do the work beforehand. And so they don't even care that you're an international applicant. Like, I don't care where she's from. She's the best person. I want her on this campus.
So do I have to, so if that is not mentioned by them, knowing, because it's stated in my resume, it's stated in the application. So do I have to explicitly mention it, that I'm an international applicant, or just,
I don't think so, because I think with your, I will find out if you could, if you wouldn't mind emailing me or calling me a little bit later on Monday. I'll find out for you, because I don't know that you have to, because I think that your what will get you the visa to stay is the contract that they sign once they hire you. So I don't think that it's even, I'll find out for you, but I'm not sure that you do have to mention it.
All right, ma'am. I have emailed you. We are already on email conversation regarding this, so maybe we'll catch up later regarding this.
Absolutely. And thank you for your participation today, your time. I wish you luck. If you'd like one-on-one sessions practicing, I do offer a very, very discounted rate for Teacher Builder students. All students all across Texas and EPP programs utilize my services, but Teacher Builder gets me at a ridiculous discount. So keep that in mind, and you guys have a wonderful.
I have a question for you real quick. If we wanted somebody to look over our resume, who would I go through for that?
I'm not sure. You might want to ask Miss Garza.
Okay.
Or Mr. Leo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You guys have a beautiful rest of your weekend. Good luck. Remember to think positive, practice before you go in there so you don't get tongue-tied, believe in yourself, and thank you for choosing teaching, because it is the most important profession. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for everything.
Absolutely.
And ma'am, any specific question for special education teachers? Like you discussed the general questions mainly for subject teachers or for homeroom teachers, but specifically, when they're interviewing a candidate for special education, any specific question what I need to prepare for?
Actually, I would suggest that you attend one of the sessions that I host every Thursday. And it's a special ed session where you know what? I have even something better from you. I'm going to email you videos that you can watch. That way you know what to talk about, because they will ask you specific questions like about the ARD committee, like who's on the ARD committee, if you know what they do on the ARD committee, what types of things you should be able to do with the kids in the classroom. So there are something like 3 or no, there's more than that, like maybe 5 or 6 videos, and they're lengthy, but they're worth the watch. Please watch them so that you become familiar with the terminology that is used specifically with special ed. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please, my channel. So I'm going to send that to you via
Thank you so
email.
much. That will be really helpful.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So you want me to mail you that? I mean, just as a reminder, or?
Yes, please. At Stephanie Sauceda, and it's at ssauceda@teacherbuilder.net.
Okay. Sauceda teacher. Fine. I will do that, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Bye. Same
Bye-bye.
to you.